You are watching The Conversation on Kenya 360 TV.
If you've lived long enough in the US, then you're bound to know that one subject that most people are very uncomfortable to talk about. The one topic that you bring up in conversation, the water cooler, and you're bound to find a few quiet walkaways. It's that subject that will most likely send shivers to a few people sitting around the table because of their experience or personal experience of it. This is immigration. On this edition tonight, we bring you a gentleman that is not only willing to talk about it, but has gone out and practically done something to try and change the conversation in the political circles, and that is not only here in Washington, but also in Capitol Hill. Meet Moses Chege, a 19-year-old originally from Kenya that resides here in Washington, Tacoma, Washington, and who has been making headlines for all the good reasons, and that's because of his championing of the immigration reform here in the US. Hello and welcome to The Conversation. I'm your presenter, Ron Imanene. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ron.
Now, you have a personal story as far as the immigration conversation is concerned, which has propelled you into being a leader with a United We Dream. Would you tell us a little bit about how you got here?
Yes. So I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, and my dad was studying theology, and he got a student visa, what's known as J1, to come to the United States and study. And then later on, the rest of our family came, and during that time, we applied for a green card, as so many people do, and we were lucky enough to win one. But the dates between when the visa was going to expire and the green card was going to kick in, there was a discrepancy. There was a discrepancy between those dates, and that was never resolved. And so what ended up happening is, like 40% of the undocumented immigrants in the United States, we just ended up overstaying the visas, and we've been living in the United States ever since.
Now, in the course of and I commend you for everything you're doing. Some great work with the organization United We Dream. This is especially targeted for the young population like yourself, who have found themselves in that position, not by their own design, but like you say, finding that their visas have lapsed, and now here they are, they have to deal with it. What is the organization targeting to do, or what has this organization been doing? If you could tell us a little bit about it.
United We Dream, ever since it was founded quite a number of years ago, was intended to make sure that that undocumented voices were being heard. And of course, older generations, there's less incentive to do that. They're very busy. They have jobs. There's also that danger. And I think that youth and young adults brought an aspect of innocence, and they were able to escalate more than other groups would. And they also had the personal perspective of living through the issue themselves.
I've been very personally involved with the passing of the Real Hope Act here in Washington. Am I correct to say that?
Yes.
Now, could you tell us a little bit about the Real Hope Act? I know it's a Washington-based, but this could be something other people in other states are looking at. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yes. So the Real Hope Act that passed, or was previously known as the Washington State Dream Act, would allow undocumented students who went to Washington State high schools or lived here for or met the criteria of how long you lived in Washington State, you would be eligible to apply for the Washington State Need Grant, which is Washington State's financial aid program for college, to attend an in-state university. And prior to that, it wasn't the case. And that's a big part of how a lot of people get involved, is because, maybe they know they're undocumented, or maybe they don't even know. But when you start applying for college, it's when you start interacting with federal institutions like universities and like federal financial aid or Pell Grants or student loans, and that's when being undocumented becomes a real reality to you.
Now, your experience, and like we were talking about before coming on site, a lot of people in that situation tend to shy away from publicity for fear of repercussions, or just from fear of stigma. Mm-hmm. It's just the other day that the word illegal was being thrown around. Now, would you say that without people coming out there to make their case, this becomes a very difficult conversation to get momentum all the way to the Hill? Washington, that is.
Absolutely, because what happens when you come on, you're telling your story is then it becomes a very personal matter. Because if you're talking about national immigration reform, all you have to do is just say, like, I've lived here for 10 years. What are you going to do with me? Obviously, deporting doesn't make any sense. And so going back to the Washington State, the Dream Act or the Real Hope Act, that became personal. Personally, I got involved because I was graduating high school and I found out these things, and I decided to get involved. And then I was able to also kind of change the face of who was down there. There aren't a lot of African American undocumented immigrants who are undocumented students who are going to talk about this, and so it changes the legislators' views of who exactly this is serving or who's being let out. I was also I was taking college classes in high school, and I had been participating in Junior R.O.T.C. I was a varsity athlete, and so when I went down there and I made my case, exactly. So I'm no longer a person now. I'm one of these star students who was being left out of the system, and they couldn't understand why. And so I think that was part of why we were able to get that done.
And when you look at it on a more broader perspective, the face of immigration in the U.S. is mostly Latino. Talk about immigration, and the first thing that comes to the mind of a regular American is a Latino. Mm. Would you say that by us being quiet, by the majority of other communities being silent on this conversation, that we might end up drawing the short straw down the road?
I think so, because if you're not sharing your story, then and you're not being part of the conversation, you're not at the table, then obviously you're going to miss out, and you can't expect other people to be able to advocate for you the same way you would be able to. So I'd say definitely there is a consequence to that.
Now, a few things, or a lot of things, have gone wrong in the last few years when it comes to the immigration, and of course how the administration has handled the fate of those who end up behind incarceration for breaking immigration laws. Now, from an activist perspective, what has gone wrong, and why is there such a high number of deportations under the Obama administration as opposed to others? Where do we stand as far as deportations right now?
So deportations a few weeks ago, we now estimate have surpassed 2 million. So that's more 2 million people, and that's more than any other administration in American history. And I think
wait a minute, 2 million deportations under the Obama administration?
Yes, under the Obama administration alone, and that's more than President Bush, President Clinton, or any other president. And I think when you look at it, the reason for that is at the beginning of the immigration debate, there's conservatives who don't think, well, the administration isn't tough enough, and you can assume that maybe the administration felt that they needed to ramp up deportations to prove a point that they could be tough. And even if you look at the president's 2010 State of the Union address, he says that his administration has deported the most undocumented immigrants of any administration, and he uses that as a talking point to kind of convince the conservatives to go along with them for immigration reform. And now we're seeing the real consequences of that with the movement now to pressure the president to provide administrative relief.
And talking about the pressure on the president, let's take a look at this.
We're going to make our country more secure. We'll strengthen our families. And most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up to our character as a nation. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Every single day.
That's why we're here.
President, please use your executive order to halt deportations for all 11.5 undocumented immigrants in this country right now.
What we're
we
trying.
agree that we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. At the same time, you have a power to stop deportation for all undocumented
Actually, I don't.
in this country.
And that's why we're here.
I need your help.
Okay.
Stop deportation! Stop deportation!
Thank you. All right.
Stop deportation!
What I'd like to do. No, don't worry about it, guys. Okay, let me finish. Let me. How about these guys don't need to go. Let me finish. No. He can stay there. Let me. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. So, I respect the passion of these young people because they feel deeply about the concerns for their families. Now, what you need to know when I'm speaking as President of the United States, and I come to this community, is that if, in fact, I could solve all these problems without passing laws in Congress, then I would do so. But we're also a nation of laws. That's part of our tradition. And so the easy way out is to try to yell and pretend like I can do something by violating our laws. And what I'm proposing is the harder path, which is to use our democratic processes to achieve the same goal that you want to achieve. But it won't be as easy as just shouting. It requires us lobbying and getting it done. So, so for those of you who are committed to getting this done, I am going to march with you and fight with you every step of the way to make sure that we are welcoming every striving, hard-working immigrant who sees America the same way we do. As a country where no matter who you are or what you look like or where you come from, you can make it if you try. And if you're serious about making that happen, then I'm ready to work with you. But it is going to require work. It is not simply a matter of us just saying we're going to violate the law.
Do you think that the criticism should directly be going to him, or what's your take on it?
I think part of it, definitely because he is the face of the administration, and also in the video he says he can't act, and that's a little bit of an exaggeration. So obviously the president can't stop all deportations, but there are almost
right?
Yeah, but there are almost 12 million documented immigrants, and only so many lawyers to prosecute these cases. And so we can definitely scale down the number of deportations they're doing, especially of people who haven't committed any criminal records or people who would benefit from immigration reform if it wasn't installed in the Republican House right now. And so just based off that, there are things the administration can do.
And your organization has put out about 5 things the president should do. Could you break that down for us just in a nutshell?
Absolutely. So, first of all, the president could expand deferred action for childhood arrivals to families of a lot of mixed status families. So there's a lot of people who are legal permanent residents, but they have a cousin or a brother or a parent or a child who may be undocumented, and the president can expand deferred action to more individuals than just children. And the second thing he can do is he can put administrative relief for certain populations of the undocumented immigrants. So people who haven't, don't have serious criminal records, you can choose not to deport those individuals. And third thing you can do is ensure that all Dreamers can benefit from deferred action or DACA. And part of that has to do with, right now, there's a $450 fee associated with filing it. So he could put a waiver on that fee for people who can't afford it. There's also a bar on misdemeanors. So there's people who haven't been convicted of a serious crime anywhere where you'd have to be in jail for over a year. Those people, tiny little mistakes they made now are affecting whether or not they can work. And so that's something else you can do. Fourth thing you can do is you can reunite families torn apart by deportations, and that's called humanitarian parole, where if you had a family member who was deported, then that person would be able to temporarily come and visit and reunite. Among some other things they could do with that. And then fifth is end the widespread incarceration of our communities. And so that has to do with for-profit prisons that have an incentive to detain as many people as possible to raise their profits. It also has to do with different programs like the Papers, Please law in Arizona and other things like that. So there's some definite changes the administration could make.
No, there has been the activist movement has been very vocal in championing for the rights of immigrants, both especially those who are incarcerated. Just the other day there was a nationwide hunger strike, right? Campaign that was going on through a lot of detention facilities. There has been a lot of demonstrations in cities across the country. Are they making an impact on these conversations?
Absolutely, because I think if anything, they're conversation starters. They let people know that this is an issue that people care about, and of course, you have things like civil disobedience that are being used just like the civil rights protests, so the civil rights movement. So I think they're definitely making an impact, and they're putting the issue at the forefront of the conversation, and that's important.
You've gotten the backing of some very key congressmen here in the Washington area. Is this something that is happening nationally, or is this just kind of isolated to Washington?
Oh no, it's definitely happening nationally, and those members of Congress you described are people who are very supportive, and it's also happening in a lot of other places. Especially, and this is why if you share your story, and I encourage people to share with their members of Congress, so when they go back there and they're fighting for this issue or they're debating it, they have a face that they're thinking about, and they know that these are people and not numbers.
Now, the conversation on immigration is one of those that a lot of people don't have the right information on their hands. There's so much fear. It's a fear-driven system where all it takes is somebody to mention the ICE and I go call. Mm-hmm. Do you come across those kind of situations where there's so much misinformation out there?
Absolutely, and I think there's a kind of culture where people feel comfortable being invisible, and that's part of why they usually don't want to share. But so I think it's important that people know their rights, and that they have rights, and they don't have to answer questions if they're asked information out there.
Talking about knowing your rights, let's watch this little video.
How you doing, sir?
I was doing great.
Tell me, sir, are you a U.S. citizen?
Am I being detained?
Excuse me?
Are you detaining me?
Are you one of those guys? That's great. More citizens should know their rights. No, sir, you are not being detained. I would need probable cause for that. In fact, if you want to get technical, according to Section 18.7 of the Border Patrol Inspector's Field Manual governing internal checkpoints, I need to have a reasonable suspicion that you are both an alien and inside the country illegally before I can detain you. And then, of course, there are the numerous constitutional issues at play, which I'm sure you're aware of. Do you have a copy of the Pocket Constitution? You don't have to answer that. Here, why don't I just give you one of mine? Here's two, actually. That one's in English. This one's in Arabic, if you need that. Are you recording me? Is that on? Are you recording me right now?
Oh.
No, you don't have to answer. No, according to the Supreme Court, Florida v. Romer, Terry v. Ohio, you're well within your rights not to respond. Truth is, I shouldn't even be asking you about anything not directly regarding your citizenship. But hey, I won't tell if you won't, okay? Well, but you know, you got me there, all right? You got me there. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my card, all right? It's got my badge number at the bottom, and I wrote my direct supervisor's email on the back there. So if you have any questions at all, you just contact us, okay? You don't have to answer that either. You have a good day, sir. It's cool. I got it in my pocket.
I don't consent to searches.
That video does a kind of very creative and funny and great job of describing the certain rights that you have over years and years of litigation. That you don't have to answer questions if you're asked, and a bunch and numerous other rights that you have.
It looks like comedy, but it's not.
Exactly, and I think that's very creative because that's the scenario people picture, right? Is someone knocking and asking them all these different questions, and so lets them know that if that was to ever happen, like this is what you can do, and this is what you don't have to do, even if they try to intimidate you.
You still have rights.
Exactly.
You are one that is not in hiding. You're pretty much going about your life like any young man of your age should do. This is a story, a journey that started from a personal level, but you've come across a whole lot of other people who have lived the same kind of or encountered the same kind of situations. Now, by the fact that you're standing here or you're sitting here in public, and in a few weeks you're going to Washington, the seat of power, the political capital of the world, right out there saying, I'm here, that should say that there is no reason why people should fear. What's your advice to many young immigrants who might feel like, wait a minute, I have to limit myself from doing this or that because the law might catch up with me?
I think the important thing, and especially for young people to share their stories, is because it's important that they're heard and that they're part of the conversation, because it changes the debate, and that's always good. So, for example, when the Washington State Director of the Real Hope Act passed, part of it was the chair of the Higher Education Committee, who would decide whether or not that bill was going to get a vote in the Senate where it had been previously stalled. She happened to be the wife of a Junior R.O.T.C instructor, and her son was in Junior R.O.T.C. And so when I went and I talked to her, and I also explained that I was in Junior R.O.T.C, that changed her mind of who this program was going to serve.
And for the benefit of the viewers that may not know what this is, R.O.T.C, could you?
It's a Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps. It's a leadership program that's very military based, and it's funded by the military. So it's like a bit like a military academy within a public school.
Now, Moses, where do you go from here? I know that you have done so much. The journey is not over yet. Where do you go from here?
From here is just continuing, and it's not really. There's so many other people who share their stories who inspired me to share my story, and so it's just continuing to work in the movement. In a couple of days, I'll be going to D.C. to meet with Secretary Jay Johnson, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, and in about a month, I'll be going to Florida to meet with the Black Immigrant Network over there at their annual convention, and just figure out how we can organize more and how we can continue to push the debate.
Now, this is inspirational because, like, instead of being cowed, there you are, the face of this conversation. At the end of the day, how would the ordinary person assist this movement?
I think one way that really any viewer can assist the movement is by if you're not really sharing your story, even if you're not, people you are, it's important that you share that story as well with different legislators and change that conversation. And the other thing is to just keep yourself educated on what is going on, and usually people will provide ways you can help.
And what are the kind of resources you might want to put out there?
So one of the resources is you can go to our website, unitedwedream.org, and there's constant information about what the organization is doing, how the movement is happening, and if there's any news of any legislation that has passed, it will definitely be there.
UnitedWeDream.org.
UnitedWeDream.org.
let's watch a little bit about other people like you that have come out and spoken publicly, and in the hope that you, as you're watching there, you realize that you're not alone. You can reach out to somebody. If anybody would be the best person to reach out to, that would be Moses Chege. He's out, in the activist world, just doing what needs to be done to make this conversation become something that is talked about not only locally here, but in Washington, D.C. Take a look at this.
Hi, my name is Onika Johnson, and my dad, Dave Johnson, is facing imminent deportation.
President Obama is on track to preside over more deportations than any previous administration.
My dad, Dave Johnson, came to the United States in 1997, and my dad has resided in the United States ever since with no criminal record.
His administration is supporting the same people that could benefit from potential legislation.
This is not okay to break up our families. It's not okay to lock up these people that are not criminals. We have to stand up for ourselves. Immigrants, as citizens who are family of immigrants, we have to stick together, and enough is enough.
Hey, Obama!
Today, 1,100 families will be torn apart. Today, there is a child across the street that might come home and not see his mom again. And we are here to say, enough. Undocumented! Undocumented! Unafraid!
Everyone, my name is Rishi Singh. I personally am undocumented and I am unafraid. I came to the U.S. in 1995 from Trinidad, and my family and I have been undocumented for over 18 years. I was fortunate enough to get DACA last year, but we know that is not enough.
We do not owe ourselves to any political party, the Republicans or the Democrats. We owe ourselves to our families.
So viewers, like Moses said, for more information about the United We Dream organization, visit unitedwedream.org. And there is a lot of information, resources that is helpful to keep this conversation going. And of course, to position you in a place that you have information at your fingertips. Knowledge is power. It has been a pleasure talking to you, Moses, and I wish you the very best as you go to Washington.
Thank you, Ron. It was great being here.
And like Moses, if you want to tell your story, please write to us at the producer at Kenya360.tv. Would love to hear your story, share it out so that at least keep the conversation going and encourage somebody out there who may be feeling like the whole world is upon their shoulders. Again, we'll also be having a program starting right here on Kenya360, Immigration Focus, that shall expound more on immigration, the law, knowing your law. Like Moses said, we need to break away from the facts from the fiction. That way, at the end of the day, you know what your rights are, and that you'll find on the Immigration Focus with Blaise Othiambo, and of course with Moses coming on as a regular contributor to the program. Again, it's been a pleasure having you on board. This has been Conversations.